I've been wanting to make this video for a while. I guess this is as good a time as any. Every time I go back to my hometown I grew up in, I notice every other business is owned and operated by an Indian guy and his family. And when I asked my friends about that, they immediately changed the conversation. And I always found that kind of weird. We grow up just in a small Midwest town in Wisconsin, and there's only a handful of not white families in the whole town, and suddenly all of the businesses are owned by foreigners. And when I talk to older guys about it, my dad's age and older, they always hand wave it away and say, Towelhead's always owned all the gas stations. And I'm like, no, the delis and the banks and the fast food, all the restaurants, major landlords now, they're all of this certain subset of foreigner coming in, buying everything up. You know, when I talk to my friends about it, even in, behind closed doors, they dare not speak on such subjects. And I always found that so weird. Why can't we talk about our home? Why are we being beaten into a place where I'm made to feel that I'm some sort of enemy for caring for my people and how my hometown develops, how my community and my area develops. You know, I think that's I think that's the key of we're talking about, right? Is how do you define what a community is? I think that a community is the turning over of the old to the young, everything about how their community functions in their society. I think that culture and society are very tied into the very people who exist in a place, right? As you have a community, you would raise your kids with your values, your ideals, your principles. You would teach them your business. And if they didn't want to continue your business, you would teach your neighbor's kid your business. You would teach another youth in the community your business. And your kid would take on another job in the community or community overall, the state overall. That seems to be the most normal and most natural progression, is that as they continue to develop their skills and learn and gain experience, and the people teaching them continue to get older and go into their retirement age, they would take over the reins in all ways. In operating their business, they would eventually buy them out in the way that they are now their steward in the community, in the way that all people die and the next generation becomes at their peak. This seems to be the most historic way of understanding a community. I don't know how we've been so convinced that the natural state is for people to continually move around and break all their personal bonds and relationships all the time. I mean, I think that a certain amount of movement and emigration is probably natural on some level. I think it ultimately is the natural state of affairs for the young to take the reins from the old as the generations turn over. And in essence, the young become the people who have now passed in a certain sort of way. They are the stewards of their communities now. They are the unks and old heads of their community. through various events, media, different forms of propaganda, ultimately, people have inverted the ostensible, obvious intention of what any community should be, is to support and be for the people within it, not the people from the outside. They've essentially turned what a community should be into more of a libertarian-esque economic zone where people are interchangeable economic units. The idea that everybody's in the world are merely just interchangeable blank slate type units. I don't really see how that ties into Christianity or ultimately right-wing thought in any way. This seems to stem from liberalism, classical liberalism, post-enlightenment thought, and those types of ideas. People aren't just widgets. Communities are of blood and soil. To have been subjected to so much propaganda that leads to deracination and oikophobia, to fear your own people, to believe that your own culture doesn't exist. I think that's scary and dangerous. And all the people who claim to be lovey-dovey and so caring, why do they reject one's own home or home society while praising others? Oikophobia. I mean, if they want to hurl around phobias, let's get the ones that fucking matter here, you know? No. Communities are of blood and soil. They are soil, a place, and blood. People have blood running through them, you know? And the best men, they have hot red blood running through their veins. Those red-blooded better men, mostly from past times, they never would have stood for what we're looking at and dealing with today. It's an absolute travesty. They would have took up arms a long time ago. Communities should be for the people who are in it. I don't really think that should be controversial at all. I think the most sensible way to view it is, as it's often said, is the family is the starting point, and as you go down, you get the individual, and as you go up, you get your extended family, you get your immediate local community, you get your town. Your town is, in America, it's a part of a county. Your county is a part of a state. Your state's a part of the country. All of those are larger and more generalized communities. Your country is the furthest logical extent of your family, I would say, because they are your countrymen. There are no world citizens. That's not a thing. Nobody's ever fought and died knowing that's what they're dying for, that they're dying to be a world citizen. That's never happened. Men die for their people. Men die for their country. Men die for their women, for their children. Men die for other men, hoping to bring better world. In our post-enlightenment era, it's pretty normal that people move around quite often. But when they do genetic testing in places like England and the UK, they find that bones of people who lived apparently thousands of years ago, are related to people who live in the immediate geographic vicinity of where those bones are found. People related thousands of years across time. I think that is actually the standard metric of what a community would normally be when its members don't continually leave and deracinate themselves from their family and community, and in a sort of sense make themselves others to where they came from. So in that way, as your family continues to grow, your local community would be made up of people who you're literally related to in a traditional sense. In essence, I think it's pretty basic that the old should be for its young, a community should be for its members. And I understand this is rather conceptual and idealistic and not exactly how the world works today. But I do still think it's extremely relevant when you get into conversations with people, in personal conversations, you know, and they actually care more about the businessman who immigrates to America rather than their fellow countrymen. I think that's entirely strange. Like, you would prefer to continually make the lowest classes of Americans lose out to people who can just get here and buy things out from them, right? See, why should our fellow countrymen lose out to people who are of the highest classes from these other countries? So the legal immigrants are all rich and can buy us all out, and all the illegal immigrants are all poor and will take all the low class jobs. So where does that leave Americans? You know, through the normal progression of a town and a community, as the older generation goes away, like I was saying, if they sell all their businesses to people who have money from the outside, almost forever locking their own kin out of being a significant member of their own community, well, you can just create something new. Yeah, and technically that's true. They could do something new. But now that business is forever locked away for those people. You're never going to operate that business. It's theirs now. You do have to come up with something new now. So other than that, yeah, that's that's pretty cheap talk from a lot of people who run scams. Frankly, you move pixels around. What do you make? What do you manufacture? Probably not much. Oh, well, we sell t-shirts. Yeah. Made in China. You gave China more jobs too. Thank God for that. No. In a local community, your local shop would be handed off to your kids, to your neighbor's kids, to your friend's kids, to one of the kids of the community. And maybe he would take 10 years to pay you off, but you knew that it was a good kid. You knew it was a good guy who cared about the community, who wouldn't come in, buy up all the little shops and all the gas stations, change all the inventory to, maybe lower quality and frankly, potentially injurious products. No, I think a community should be for the people who are there. For what else is a community? You risk being rejecting one's own home or home society while praising others. I think that should be a slur. I think if you behave that way, this should be worse than being called racist. This should be worse than being called an anti-Semite. Being called un-American, being called an oikophobic person, I think that should be I think that should have a lot of weight to it. I mean, what are you? You're a traitor. You are the enemy within. You are the enemy within. You hate your own people. Come on, man.